Welcome to the Digital Maddy Show. This is a platform where I share my knowledge on video creation, digital marketing, chatbot marketing, and how to grow your business through video making. I also invite many influencers and digital marketers on the show and ask amazing questions to extract their secrets of business. Let's get started with your host. Hi, my name is Mithyl, and I'm a YouTube and video creation coach, and I help aspiring video influencers to create and monetize their content through video making. Today we have an amazing guest on our show. She is a former professional figure skater who has shared her eyes and the podium with Christy Yamaguchi and Tonya Harding. She is already into our studio. Let's welcome her. So as told you, she is already into our studio. Let's welcome Val Jones to our studio.
Thank you, Mithyl, for having me today. I'm so excited to be here.
Most welcome. So let me introduce Val, you to my viewers. So basically, Val Jones, she is a professional figure skater, a CrossFit instructor, speaker, peak performance expert, a daughter, sister, wife, mother, friend. She's a lover of all animals, especially dogs and dolphins. This is something we both have common too. And she has overcome many obstacles in her life, and now she hopes to inspire others to keep up the good fight. So it's an honor to have you on our show. I guess you are also planning to become an Olympic player too.
I was, yes. I had trained 13 years and I calculated over 36,000 hours for my Olympic dream. Unfortunately, I had a career-ending knee injury that didn't allow that to ever come true.
Okay, I'm sorry to hear that, but still you did not give up. You are a fighter and you kept moving forward and you fought forward. And yes, that's awesome.
Yes.
Great.
It's a lot of work.
Absolutely. So, Val, can you share one of your favorite quote that keeps you motivated and keeps you going strong day by day?
One of my favorites is from my favorite skater of all time, Scotty Hamilton. And he says, the only true and real disability in life is a bad attitude. And over the course of my life, I have suffered a heartbreak and disappointment and pain. And I don't think I'm anything unique or special. I have heard some truly horrific stories about pain and abuse and abandonment. And so I don't think any of us humans are immune to bad things happening to us. So I'm not anything special in that sense. So maybe it's that we can't control what happens to us, but we can always control our attitude about it. And I think about that quote a lot because if you know anything about Scotty Hamilton, he himself has suffered a lot of obstacles in his life, and yet he is just the truly most genuinely happy, fun person to be around. And so I always just want to remind myself that, you know what, there are people out there that have it worse, and my attitude about it is more important than the event itself. So that's my favorite.
Cool, that's awesome. Yes, in order to reach to the pinnacle of your life, I think this all problems and challenges are like the stepping stones. And if you don't give up, I think in the end, you are at the top and you can see the awesome beauty of the whole world when you see and try to connect all the dots.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. So before we get started, Val, can you share your backstory, your origin story?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thank you. I am the youngest of 7, and we grew up in a very competitive family. All of my siblings, we all played sports, and my dad was actually a semi-professional hockey player. And we, to go all of us out on an outing, it was a big deal for our family. And on this particular day, a brand new ice rink had opened about five miles from our house. And Dad said, hey, I want to introduce you guys to the ice. I have a love for the ice. And I don't think my parents had any idea what all would come from that one innocent outing as a family. But the first time I put on my skates, I felt like I was a duck in water. I loved it. I fell instantly in love with it. And my parents, this was 1975, and my parents asked, hey, who wants to take lessons? And it was my brother and I who said yes. And so my journey started. A few months later than that, it was the 1976 Winter Olympic Games, and I saw Dorothy Hamill capture her gold medal, and that kind of solidified it for me. I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I want to do. And so I started training for that Olympic dream. I had amazing parents who supported me. And at the age of 11, my mom and I moved from our family home in Sacramento, California to the Bay Area so that I could train with higher level coaches. I had the privilege of training with Brian Boitano and his coach. And we were set on the path, and it was amazing. I mean, to be able to train with that level of athlete was certainly a blessing. And we did that for 2.5 years. My mom and I would drive home after my practice on Friday night back to our home in Sacramento so that we could be with my dad and my many siblings. And then we would drive back to the Bay Area on Sunday night. Up until the day that, unfortunately, my dad suffered a massive heart attack and died in front of me. I was 13. And that, has been a heartache for me. And as well as it is, for anybody who loses a parent at such a young age. And I almost quit skating, but then I was like, that's not really what Dad would want. And so I pushed through, and I returned to the ice and to the competition. And it was 1988, and I was training a new jump called a triple Lutz. And Mithyl, when you were rotating your body 3 times in the air in under a second, you really have to, crank it. And on this particular day, I cranked it, but my foot stayed in the ice, and I blew out my knee basically. And so the surgeon said, I can put you back together, but it's my professional opinion that you never skate again. And so that was a very hard thing for me to go through. And now I had to do it without my dad. And so I struggled for a while and found my way to other activities and college, which was never on. College was never on the docket as far as my plans, because I had, I was going to skate and I was going to do that. So that was a different world for me to be in. And life took a typical path. We got married, we had kids. The last 10 years I have spent as a CrossFit instructor. I think actually when I look at my resume, every position that I have ever held has had some type of coaching. At the root of it, I was a corporate trainer in my career days. And so being a coach is what I love to do. I think it's part of who I am. And lastly, nobody told me when I was 5 years old that ice was all those repetitive jumps, hour after hour, day after day, week after week, would have consequences. And in 5 years, I have had 5 surgeries, 4 of them being orthopedic. I have a new back and a new hip, and I still have that knee. I'll still have to have that knee replaced that I blew out when I was 18. My last surgery resulted in a complication called MRSA. And MRSA is a staph infection that is not normally curable by normal antibiotics. You have to have IV antibiotics, and normally a person with MRSA has to be quarantined because it's so highly contagious. That 5th surgery was actually sinus surgery, and the MRSA was in my sinuses, so I didn't have to be quarantined. But much like chemo is to cancer, the cure for MRSA is the same. Chemo will either kill the cancer, it'll unfortunately kill the patient. And that's the same for MRSA. And on day 27 of my protocol, my kidneys went into failure. So it tried to kill me, but it didn't. And that has led me to the present. I've had these experiences. I've gone through some hard things. And I feel like when you go through something hard and you learn a lesson, you should share it. To ease the pain and ease the burden of the next person. And maybe your audience may not find themselves in exactly those situations, but similar situations. And so it's my goal, it's my passion to help people overcome their obstacles and still realize their dreams.
Yes. I see a lot of people keep complaining even if they have slightest of problems, and they say that my problem is so big. And like I had heard somewhere that if we all put all of our problems in front of us, and everyone bring and put their problems in front of the table, and when you see other people's problem, I think your will be too small and you will just silently take it and walk away. And like when people are going to listen to your story, and then when they compare struggles that you had and you have overcome them with so much strong willpower and support from your family, of course, their problems may be very small, and they would, I think, not complain henceforth. So I think thank you so much for motivating them to keep moving forward.
Yes, keep going. That's what I always say. And here's a dirty little secret that nobody tells you, is that it doesn't have to look pretty. It doesn't have to look pretty. And there were times in all of those surgeries, Mithyl, where I was in so much pain and I was passing out and vomiting. And I mean, it was not pretty. I kept going, even though it was really, really hard. So yeah, I say that a lot. Keep going. It doesn't have to look pretty.
Great. So I think that's why you are a girl boss. Strong power.
Yeah.
Great. So, like how you had so many dreams, there are many people who have dreams and they have aspirations, but I think very few are able to achieve those dreams and aspirations is only because they have the motivation and the discipline. So can you throw some light on how can one person find more motivation and discipline? If you can share your example, how did you find more motivation and discipline to reach to this level?
Well, I think some people are just naturally more motivated and disciplined than others, but I think it's behaviors that you can learn. You can. And for the motivation part, I feel like if you are in line with what you want and it runs congruent to who you are and what you want to do, I feel like the motivation will come. And the motivation, for me to have trained 36,000 hours, I didn't have all that motivation up front. I think I like keeping your eye on the big picture. But the key to that motivation is breaking it down into little teeny tiny daily motivations. That's how motivation is sustainable. Doctors, lawyers, all these professions where you have to spend, it's like what, 12 years to be a doctor or a veterinarian or something like that. That's overwhelming for me. And I don't think that anybody could look at that much and be like, yay, I'm motivated to study and be $100,000 in debt. So it would be my suggestion, always keep an eye on that big picture, but break it down into small daily motivations. And that's the same with discipline. It's like it's very hard for the human brain to think long term. I mean, way back in the day, right? In the caveman days, they were like, okay, I have to find water and find something to eat today, or I'm not going to live tomorrow. It was very short. Keep an eye on that long-term discipline, but break it up into small daily habits. And to that point, I'd like your audience to understand the difference between an achievement goal and an action goal. An achievement goal, I'll just use this as an example, an achievement goal. I want to lose 20 pounds. That's great. Keep an eye on that. How are you going to get there? You're going to get to that achievement goal by daily goals. By I'm going to exercise my body. I'm going to move through time and space an hour a day, 6 days a week, and I'm going to eat whole healthy foods, and I'm going to stop putting junk into my body. What you do daily creates your identity, and your identity is what drives your success. So small daily, that's how you get it done.
Great. So as you are saying that in order to be stuck to your discipline and motivation, you need to have big goals and you need to have small goals. Big goals can be achievement goals and small goals can be your action goals. So my question to you is, Val, how do you obtain your goals?
How do I opt in?
How do you can obtain your goals? Like how can you create goals? How can you follow it?
So I'm a big believer in vision boards and visioning what you want your life to be. When I skated and trained, I spent a lot of time, I would close my eyes and I would skate my program in my head. And not only just seeing it, but like, what did it feel like to nail that jump? What did this crowd sound like? What were the smells? What could I, using your 5 senses? And so I'm a big believer in visualizing your goals. And to the point where, there's a lot of research on how you speak resonates with your soul. And if you have a faith that you believe in, or a spiritual side of you, you've heard it say, if you speak it to the universe will give it to you. So speak it into your heart as if you've already achieved it. And instead of saying, I want to lose 20 pounds, that's good. I think better is, I love being at my ideal weight. I feel so healthy and strong, and I have so much energy. See the difference? Totally different, right? Your body will react differently to it. So yeah, back to the small daily goals is a good way. And certainly, the SMART goals, SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. Those are really good. You have to kind of do a check. And the last thing that I like to do with my goals is I put a time frame to it. And that's controversial. There's some professional development people out there that say, no, don't put a time frame. It takes as long as it's going to take. I say put a time frame to it because a goal without a time frame is just a hope. And hopes are great. I love hopes. Go for it. But if you want to get it done, put a time frame. And should you not accomplish that time frame, that goal by that time frame, then it's just reevaluating and adjusting. Like, do I still want this? What do I have to do to get there? Okay, it's going to take me 18 months to train for that. triathlon. Okay, so maybe I need to push that out. So it's always just being on top of where are you and how much further you have to go. What do I need to do to get there?
Awesome. Yes. So break it into small goals, keep on achieving it, keep yourself happy and motivated that, yeah, I'm able to achieve small goals and eventually will reach to the bigger goals. Great. So,
Yes.
well, how can I become a peak performer?
So in my experience, it has been this. And the man's name who is credited to saying this quote is, I believe his name is Kevin Durante. I believe he's an NBA professional basketball player. And it's this: hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I think if you have good goals that are smart, they're realistic, and you are willing to do the work, you can achieve anything that you want. But the human body is designed to avoid pain, right? That's what the whole fight or flight mechanism is. Our body at its most human core is to avoid pain at all costs. I say lean into the pain. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And history is just laden with people who became peak performers who failed and who had obstacles. You know, you hear about, you know, Michael Jordan, who got kicked off his freshman team, and you hear about Walt Disney, who got fired for lack of imagination. Can you imagine? All of those people, they had big goals, and they knew that they were going to have to work for it. And so I'm a big believer in you can be, do, and have anything you want in life, as long as you're willing to be, do, and have the amount of work it takes to get there. So when I'm in a group of my peers, a little game that I play with myself is I look around and I ask myself, am I the hardest worker in the room? Am I the hardest worker? And if I'm not, then guess what? I need to up my game. So being a peak performer is, you have to put in the time, to me.
Cool. Yes. So hard work always pays. Something like even Bruce Lee said, if you practice that particular step for 10,000 times, then that is also going to give you, like, that is the winning streak that you will be able to achieve.
Yes, I love that quote. It's amazing.
True. That's one of my favorite quotes that keeps me motivating, and that's why I do these interviews on a daily basis. So yes. So when it comes to motivation, when it comes to discipline, then you have goals, and then you want to become a peak performance. But then if something goes wrong or something doesn't go as per plan, I think even not only the body, but the mind also starts working against you, and that's when the fear creeps in. So if we fail to not achieve that particular goal at times, what should we do? Like, how can I overcome my fear?
Well, so fear, as Zig Ziglar says, fear, F-E-A-R, could either mean forget everything and run. And it's an option. I mean, it is a viable option, or it's face everything and rise.
Wow.
And I love how Zig says that. At every obstacle that I have encountered, you have a choice. Do you stay where you are and do nothing? And you know what? Sometimes in some scenarios, that is absolutely the appropriate choice. Or do I step forward and try to make a move? Understanding that sometimes that move is to turn around and go back. Going backwards is still moving. And I don't mean going back and repeating a mistake. I mean, sometimes it just means I was headed down a path and that isn't serving me. And so I have to pivot and turn around. So fear is, first of all, I feel like for myself, I'm gonna tattletale on myself. Fear has shown up for me. Am I scared of failing? I don't know. I mean, if you're attempting something extraordinary, I think you need to plan on failing often. Or was I really scared of seeing other people see me fail? In all honesty, and for me, that was it. I was scared for other people to see me fail, and it's accepting that you can look at failure as failure, or you can look at it as an opportunity to learn and grow better. And so I think the biggest thing that people fear is failure, and fear. Fear and panic can be trained out. It's like any other muscle. It doesn't go easily, but it can be trained out. And I know as I stepped out onto the ice in front of 10,000 people, trust me when I tell you there was fear and panic. But that's why, and then it comes back to train it. You have to do the work, you have to put in the hours, you have to put in the reps. And I'm obsessed with the Navy SEALs. They are the best and most elite, scary humans on the planet. And they're the peakiest of peak performers. I think I just made up a word, but they are the highest peak performers, and it's because they have trained out that fear and panic. And they've trained it, and I've spoken and I work with some Navy SEALs, and they're like, when we go out for a mission, we train it not until we can get it right, but we train it until we can't get it wrong. And he tells me that they train their missions, and they purposely put in obstacles like, oh, the door bomb didn't go off, or this thing didn't go right, and they practice mistakes. And that blew my mind. Wow. How many of us in our lives are practicing getting through mistakes? It's an interesting concept, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So fear and panic, it can be trained out, but you do have to do the training.
True. So you're trying to say that with trainings, and I think with proper mindset that also you included, which will help you to eradicate the fear completely.
Yeah.
So what to do if someone fails? I have seen many, especially teenagers, if they fail even in their examinations or they fail in their relationships, the one thing that they know is quit. They either end up going suicide, or they just end up, into bad road that's like drugs and a lot of other things. So what to do when someone fails?
I think it's switching your mindset and not looking at it as a failure. It's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to grow. And really, failure at its very basic root is feedback. When I was skating and I was learning a new jump, do you think I tried it for the first time and landed on my feet? I mean, that would have been great. But no, and I used to get huge bruises and hematomas on my hip from falling, 10,000 times. But every time I fell, it was feedback. Oh, I was off rotation. Oh, I pulled too early. It was feedback to learn from, to get better, so that the day that I put all of the feedback together and I landed on my feet. And so I think it's a switch of mindset that it's okay to fail. Learn from it. Take that feedback, put it in your mind bank, and let it grow you and let it teach you. And failure's not a bad thing. And I wish our young people, they are there. I have 2 kids of my own, and they're terrified to fail. And I've tried to encourage them. It's okay. It's okay. It's just feedback. Learn from it. And I heard once, have you heard this saying, what do you get when you don't get what you want? And the answer is, you get wisdom.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's a very costly wisdom and experience, but I wish people could switch their mindset and just embrace failure. It's not a bad thing.
True.
It's not.
I can even add one more thing over here with my little experience that I have on this planet, that the Almighty tries to give you certain hints in your entire road where you are, the feedbacks, basically. Those hints are nothing but feedbacks that whatever you're doing is wrong. But then if you keep on ignoring, the feedback eventually goes too high. The cost of that mistake goes beyond measurable. And yes, I think that is also one of the reasons that people fail, and then they just don't know what to do, because they ignored all the feedbacks eventually, which were started with small feedbacks, and then they were big feedbacks, but we kept on ignoring it again and again.
I would agree. Yeah, most definitely.
So Val, like eventually when the people join any of the team, or even in corporates, or I think everywhere there are teams, whether you say supermarket, or where you say companies, or where you say schools, everywhere there are teams. And eventually people during course of time, because everyone is born leader, but they don't find that potential in them, but then eventually they want to become a leader. So as per you, Val, how can someone become a better leader?
Well, I think first is you don't have to have a title to be a leader. Anybody can be a leader. Even a child can lead adults to better and bigger things. So you don't have to have a title. To be a good and effective leader, in my opinion, is caring more about your team's success than you do your own. And I was very fortunate. I had great parents. I also had really good figure skating coaches. And one of my skating coaches told me this, and I've adopted it as my own. She told me this: look, Val, I only succeed when you succeed. And I was 6 when I heard that, and it has stuck with me all those years. So in this world where, you know, everybody's trying to make moves and be successful, that's great. And you will get there, but care more about your team's success than your own. And to that point, I was recently on, my husband and I went up to Canada, and we went on this dog sledding trip. And the lead musher who led our group, he was telling us about how each dog position function has a different function. The first 2 dogs in the very front of the pack, they are the lead dogs. They are the smartest, they take direction the best, and they have a unique ability to find the path when it's not quite clear. And the middle 2 dogs, they are your pacer dogs. They make sure that the pack doesn't burn out and run too fast coming out of the gate. They set the pace and the tone for the rest of the team. And then the last 2 dogs are your strength dogs. They're your powerhouses. They pull the most weight. He says, but the most important person on that team is the musher. And he says, and the reason why is because, and he's in the back, right? All the dogs are in front of him. He's in the back. And the reason why it's important to be in the back is so that he can keep an eye on his team. He can watch the dogs to see if they're getting tired, bored, injured. Does he need to swap out some dogs so that they, he can relieve some of those symptoms? And then he said something that really struck my heart. If you are leading a team, he said the 2 strength dogs, when you come up on an incline, if they think you're being lazy and you're just standing on the sled, they're going to look back at you and kind of give you a dirty eye and kind of, and I thought, certainly a dog isn't going to look back and give me a dirty look. And I'm 5 feet tall, 130 pounds, right? So I thought, little old me. Well, sure enough, it was my turn to be the musher. And we came to an incline, and it was a slight incline, but my strength dog, Kenai, he looked back at me, and he gave me a look. Enough of that. If looks could kill, I would have been dead. And I was torn between laughing and trying to run like Usain Bolt, So I jumped off my sled and I started running so that we could get this incline. Here's where it all comes together. If you're the leader of your team, are you leading from the back? Are you watching your people for exhaustion, boredom, injury? Are you switching them out as necessary? And for crying out loud, are you jumping off your sled and running with your team when time gets hard? Or are you just cruising on top of the sled? And I thought it's a beautiful analogy for how to lead a team. So put your teammates first. Lead your team. You only succeed if they succeed. And it was just such an amazing experience and such a great picture for leading a team, especially in trials like we're going through right now.
Absolutely. That's an amazing story that you shared. And there was a movie that I don't remember the name of the movie, but there were like 6 to 8 dogs got stranded into that particular thing, and he has to go off and has to come back. I think it's below 8 feet or something like that.
8 Below. Yeah, with Paul Walker. It's a great movie.
Awesome movie. That's cool.
Yeah.
When you were sharing that story, just that particular scene just comes on my mind where he has tied all the dogs with a chain, and once he comes back for them. So technically, even he is a leader who wants us to come back for his team. Awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So, it was such an amazing, time right now that we are chatting with you and, getting lots of information for you. So all the people who are listening to this particular show, if they want to connect with you or know more about you, is there some, platform people can connect with you and get more value from you?
Yes, you can jump on my website at www.valjonesspeaks.com. And on my website, it also has all the links to my social platforms as well.
Great. So also, do you have some kind of blog or magazine?
I do. I have a magazine that has some tips and tricks on how to increase your performance. And if you go on to my website, there is an option and a button to get your free subscription. You just click on it and you're in.
Great. Lovely. So we are at the end of this episode, Val. And before we, end this episode, would you like to say something to our viewers?
Yes, thank you. I would. I always want to leave with an encouraging word. And so, we are experiencing an unprecedented time right now with this whole COVID thing, and it's going to ruin, the economy and hopefully not our health. But I always want to leave people with 3 things if they can remember nothing else. And the first one is you are not what happens to you in life. It is an event, and it's not a definition or a definition. It's definitely not a label. And bad things happen. So, but you are not what happens to you in life. The second one is you can't always choose what happens to you in life, but you can always choose your attitude about it. I kind of said that at the beginning of the show. And lastly, never quit. Just don't ever quit. Never be out of the fight, even if it means you have to redirect, rebound, rebuild, rehab, retrain. Never be out of the fight. Keep going no matter what. This life is too big and too beautiful to miss out. And it's my goal for your viewers that they have this big, beautiful life and that they get to accomplish all their dreams.
Great. Thank you so much for all such valuable things, Val. So you were just listening to Digital Maddy Show with your host, Mithyl Dave, and we have an amazing guest, Val Jones. So if you are listening to this particular video on YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening as a podcast, you can subscribe to my podcast on Anchor or Google Podcast. Thank you so much, Val, for being on the show. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, Mithyl. Have a great day.
You too.